Welcome to the City Council Workshop for Tuesday, March 18th, 2025. Before we start, I've asked CEO Mark Egard to come up and say a few words and give an announcement, please.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. It's my unfortunate pleasure, I guess, to notify you that previous council member, public servant, and former Mayor Mark Mace has passed away. His funeral will be next Thursday. The mayor asked me to just give a few words about Mark and how he came to the city of Laurel. And so I did a little research, but he was elected council member in 1999, starting serving the council in 2000. In 2014 or 13, we didn't have a mayor at the time that was signing up for an election. So some of us as staff thought, you know, someone from council's got to step up. Kenny Olson, the former mayor, was retiring, I should say, and he wanted to resign that from being the mayor. So Mark Mace stepped up. He became mayor in 2014. He served that until he no longer did a second term, and he retired in 2018. Not only did he retire from the city of Laurel after 18 years of public service, but he is also a public service employee for the city of Billings, I think for well over 30 years. He worked in the public works department in Billings. And so our condolences, I think, should go out to him, his family, Rhonda, his wife, and I was in contact with her late last week and expressed that we were all thinking of her and her family. So anyway, I just wanted to announce that to the council, and the mayor asked me to speak a few words, but I started here in 2005 and he was a council member here in 2005. He served on our public works committees and a lot of committees. I think he even served on our cemetery board. And so he was just a true hearted, nice guy. He was also a veteran. So he will be buried with military honors next Thursday at the Yellowstone National Cemetery. If you can make it. If you can't make it, I understand. But I think it's just important to show the Mace family our support in this time. So that is it.
Thank you, Kurt. Also, Councilmember Closey, you said that he was a Vietnam veteran and he was a Legion member of the Legion and the Color Guard for years. He will be missed. So, okay, thank you, Kurt. Public input. Citizens may address the council regarding any item of city business that is not on tonight's agenda. You have a limit of 3 minutes to speak. Do we have any? Okay. Under executive, I was made aware of before tonight's meeting that under executive review, number 3, the resolution of the city council authorizing the mayor to reschedule city council meetings set on election day. We will scratch that. That doesn't pertain to this year, does it, Brittany? It's every other year, so we'll bring that back next year. So with that being said, we'll move to number 1, planning. A resolution of the city council approving final annexation, right-of-way dedications and zoning for approximately 1 acre of property adjacent to the city of Laurel as an addition to the city of Laurel, Yellowstone County, Montana. With that.
Mr. Mayor, council members, this started, I think, probably 4 years ago. Mr. Lance Hall was interested in a piece of property, purchased that property. He wanted to bring it in, annexation into the city of Laurel, and the city had some conditions. At the time, we had a planner that had resigned, and we had our contractor planner for Sanderson working through KLJ start that process with Lance, leading off from the previous planner. So we're just going through the final steps of that. It's been a long journey for Lance and his family to get the street constructed, what the council said, what is allowable for us. We'd like for you to review that for Sanderson because he was part of the original development of that with Lance. I thought we should bring him back to let him finish that project and make sure that we dot the i's and cross the t's. So with that, for exemption.
Thanks, Kurt. Mr. Mayor, Council, where Kurt covered the background, the formal resolution that set the conditions for annexation, initial zoning, and acceptance of public infrastructure was R 2208. It is in your packet. The quick summary: the streets have been extended. The rights of way are proposed for dedication. The initial zoning of RMF was vetted by your zoning commission and recommended for approval and preliminarily approved by the council with R 2208. The lots are slated for construction of four fourplexes, 16 units in total on the property. There are findings in the staff report, but the big ticket after 2.5 years, roughly almost 3 years to get to this point, the staff recommendation is that the council approve the final annexation of the property described on the exhibit map, which we have in the packet and here this evening, that the subject property get the final assignment of RMF, and that the proposed dedication of rights of way and the installed public improvements are hereby accepted by the city. That is your action item for next Tuesday. Any questions for me? And Mr. Hull is here if the council has any questions for Mr. Hull.
No questions?
Easy.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Forrest.
Mr. Mayor.
Just like to add that I do appreciate Lance Hull's efforts. It's when you take on a development this nature, he disclosed how much money he already has into it. It's I've known Lance since, geez, I don't know how old. He was pretty young when I met him. So, but someone in our community wants to step forward and provide housing, and that's what Lance is trying to do. So I'm asking for your support in this to move forward. I think it's a good thing that we have affordable housing in Laurel. That's the intentions to create, I believe Mr. Hull's intentions were to create affordable rentals. He will own the units and then he will rent them out. He still has to go, if you approve of the annexation, you'll have to submit those plans for building. We will get building permit revenue from that. So we're not done with Lance Hull. If the council decides to move forward, this is just to be the middle step, I guess. And then we go through the building construction phases where we have to go out and do inspections. And then ultimately, if you haven't seen the other developments on 8th Avenue, the townhomes that were up there above West 9th Street, or no, south of West 9th Street. And then the apartments that are across kind of across from the library. They filled up really quick and they have been full the entire time. So I expect these to be also filled almost immediately. So I should know I have 2 young children, adults that are both legal adults and they're still living with me, but they need a place to rent. So anyway, hopefully I can raise them to get them out in the community, but it's our own children in this community that need these places too. So as they grow up and get older. And so I just appreciate your consideration on letting Mr. Hull continue his adventure.
What size boot do you wear?
What's that?
What size boot do you wear?
Oh, yeah.
I'll let your kids find out.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council.
Also, we make a little more tax money on buildings than we do bare ground. So that's a good thing to do. Kurt, where'd you go? Here's a resolution of the city council approving the expedited subdivision application for the McLeland subdivision.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council again. So this is a project that I had started last fall. We had a property on West Maryland and Alder Avenue across from where the new school is being built. The property owner is Leonard McLeland. He owns a tract over there and he is proposing to subdivide his tract, and currently it's 2.09 acres, and he wants to carve off a portion of that. Through the expedited plat process of our subdivision regulations, they have to meet certain criteria and conditions. It doesn't go through planning board. It's an expedited review. So we had our first meeting in December 12th for a pre-application meeting where the Laurel staff was invited to attend. We had county staff on as well through, I think it was a Teams meeting or Zoom meeting or something. And we sat down and we went through the request and the application. They then submitted a completed application on January 28th, along with a check to move that forward. We submitted all the information to the county. We got those back just last week, put it on the council agenda for tonight, and then consideration for March 25th. So going through it, if you have my report, it's the staff findings. We have to go through the subdivision regulations and go through essentially 10 findings when we review the expedited sub. So I went through that. They have met all 10 criteria. A lot of them are like natural effects on the wildlife and natural environment impacts. They're already in the city limits. So the annexation has already occurred. So this is a subdivision inside the city limits. We don't assume that we have wildlife roaming the streets. I know we do, but it's not an impact when we think about inside the city limits. This is, if you go out in this county, you'd have to go through all those impacts of what effect on the wildlife. Because this is already inside the city limits, those impacts are negligible there. If you go by the crossings, you'll have ducks that are crossing from the pond into Mr. McLeland property. He actually, I think a long time he had a duck crossing, or somebody had a duck crossing sign up there. Still there? So anyway, they're everywhere. They're in anyone's yard. But anyway, so going through the criteria, and then what I really need you to concentrate on is the last part of that staff review is the governing body review criteria. So in our subdivision regulations, it says the appropriate governing body shall consider the following information in deciding whether to approve or deny a final plat. So you have to effect on agriculture, water users, facilities, local services, the natural environment, wildlife habitat, and public health and safety. During the pre-application meeting, there was no concern for any of the staff's findings or law enforcement, fire. They're already currently being served by the Laurel Fire Department, Laurel Police Department. So there's really no impact on them as the land is already annexed. It's consistent with the adopted growth policy. It's consistent with the subdivision regulations. That's another criteria, which it is, and complies with the exempt plat or expedited plat review process. And then it says the governing body may not deny approval of the subdivision based solely on the subdivision that impacts on educational services. So it's 2 lots. I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on our school district. So either way, you can't consider that anyway. And then they would have in our subdivision regulations 12 months from the date of approval to get all the signatures on the Mylar. So what you'll see is a Mylar. What you see in your packet is the red line check print of the subdivision. So you didn't have to see it on your computer screens, but essentially they're creating lot 1 is the remainder tract. Lot 2 is the portion that they're severing off. And it's a rather large lot. It's 17,000 square feet compared to the parent tract, which is going to remain at 1.69. So it's a first minor subdivision from a tract of record. It is allowed through the expedited plat. So pretty fast pace to go through this. Again, it doesn't have to go through planning board. We have Doug here from Sandbell. If there's any questions or if you want to go over, did I hit the highlights or?
You're very thorough.
You can come forward, but.
Kurt, before you let the gentleman from Sandbell, where I signed the report, may I?
Yeah, but.
Real quick. Kurt did an excellent job of outlining your subdivision regulations, but I want to point out to the council, I approved the report. It's consistent with your regulations, but it's also consistent with current state law as it pertains to expedited subdivision review, which states if the subdivision is consistent with your growth policy, it's consistent with your zoning, and it's consistent with your subdivision regulations, there's nothing to see here. So long as it's served by public water, sewer, and streets, and this subdivision is. Signed the report, but wanted to make sure it's not just your regulations, it's also consistent with current state law, which states subdivisions that hit all of those bullet points come direct to the council for action. And there's really not much to see here on this one. It's consistent with the zoning, it's consistent with subdivision, and it's served by public infrastructure. Now I'll shut up and let the gentleman from Sandbell speak.
I'm Doug Pizzo. I'm Doug Pizzo. I'm a professional land surveyor with Sandville and oversaw this project, and we appreciate your consideration of this subdivision for the McClellans. That's really all I have to say. Kurt did an excellent job of presenting this, and we do feel that this subdivision is capable of meeting all the provisions of the Montana Subdivision and Planning Act. Thank you.
Councilmember Mize?
Thank you very much. Kurt, maybe you can help me. On page 63, it says the SIA does not constitute an approval for extension or connection to water mains. What's an SIA?
So a subdivision improvement agreement. So any subdivision that comes before planning board or county commissioners or anyone, they have to have a subdivision improvement agreement. And it just goes through all the conditions of how you're going to be served by the fire department, water, sewer.
So is this saying it's that ours doesn't show that we'll be served by the water and the sewer? When it says it does not constitute an approval for extension of connection to water mains?
It's already there.
Okay,
So we don't have to have any extensions. So
okay,
the good thing about what happened with the school district and the council's approval for annexation is the school district ran the water line up Alder.
oh, okay. So it's
So
just
that
saying we
was-
don't have to add more of
You don't have
it.
to add more. And so.
But we're not worried about the lift station over there
No.
and any of that.
No, so when Iron Horse came in I think 2005 approved by the council, they ran the water line down Maryland and then they ran the sewer line up Alder, but they didn't continue the water line up Alder. They served it by coming off of Maryland, off of First Avenue. So it came off First Avenue and then we hit Wyoming and Pennsylvania, Colorado go up there, Washington. So they have water lines that interconnect in there, and then that developer went into Iron Horse, and I think Sandbell was actually the engineers on that project too. Were you around when they did that too? Okay, so they're all aware of all the infrastructure that was in place, and so essentially they requested DEQ municipal exemption because they don't need DEQ approval. Right, and then that property, before it was annexed, it had a septic tank and a drain field, and when the council annexed it, they had to abandon the drain field and hook up into services. So the existing house that's there is already on water and sewer. So water and sewer was ran all around them. We don't need any public infrastructure to meet that. So that's the one good thing about Mr. McClellan, that where he's located, he's a benefited user for not having extended services. So that's why. Okay.
Kurt, is this the property next to the church?
Straight east of it.
East. It's
Yes.
right on the corner.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
That's why I brought that. If you didn't see it, I'm sorry. Sometimes when you look at your little computer screens, I like to bring the exhibit. I was hopefully describing where the ducks are and everything else.
Yeah,
But East Maryland Lane and Alder Avenue, so.
okay. All right,
All right.
no other questions? Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Forrest. Moving on, council issues. Who's gonna give the Laura update? Okay, come on, Forrest. I thought Cheryl was.
I poked the button first. Lura update. Good news, then a question, because we have an issue. The good news on the task order for lighting street sidewalks and street trees, we have received 10% design from our engineer. That is in your packet. Has some pictures, construction areas. We did have to add the chunk of sidewalk here directly across from City Hall, and we've made some minor tweaks to the design. The good news on that, we were able to get it to the engineer after the 10% meeting. That's being incorporated. Monday is 50% design. Again, we're on an accelerated path because the council's instructions were get it built this year if at all possible. We're driving toward that. The other element, which ties in with phase one, is a sidewalk survey across the entire district. It's preliminary at this point, but as you flip through, you're getting pictures as we're looking at the entire TIF district and future potential projects. This will be refined and we'll as major changes are made or when we get to final, we'll submit that to the council so you're aware what we're thinking for projects down the road. If you recall, the project task orders that were initially approved, the 4 task orders were on-call services, Project 1, Project 2, which is East Railroad, and then preliminary engineering through the balance of the district, which is most of the large report, again, all in your packet. Here's our dilemma. Guess when construction season's going to be if we can get everything together, get competitive bids and MDT permits, which the MDT permits are going to be late and could have an impact on construction timing. We're pressing real hard. The information has been submitted to MDT. We're waiting for them to review and take action. The concern is all of the events. 4th of July Parade, Rock the Block, Fall Festival, Farmers Market. Guess where all of these things happen? Right in the middle of our construction zone. Forest is very, very risk averse. And that's what we're talking about is risk. We can proceed forward. I think we're on a path and a trajectory where we will have design and we can pull the trigger and we can go under construction. The dilemma is, to my knowledge, none of the street closures have yet to be approved, which leaves us 2 choices. You don't approve them and we go to construction and Forrest is happy because he's risk averse and I don't have people at events having a good time, tripping, falling, and exposing the city to that risk. The other choice is we can go to construction, we can let the events happen, and we run risk. You tell me what you want. You won the elections. I'll implement your will to the best of my ability. But the LURA committee met on Monday and they wanted to offer you a 3rd option, which is their preferred alternative. And that is for us to pump the brakes on construction in 2025. Councilmember Mize just scowled at me. We pumped the brakes to take that risk off. We're also driving incredibly fast on this design. We can push it. I think between Doug and myself and the reviews by the committee, we've got 10, 50, 95 and final. Council will see the final before we go to bidding, but my fear is we miss something because we're pushing hard. Triple Tree Engineering is burning the midnight oil to meet this aggressive timeline. We don't have our MDT permit. We will get it. There's no doubt there, but we could end up having to split the project into 2 phases, off MDT, on MDT, which takes the 4th of July worry out of the equation. We just won't issue a notice to proceed on Main and First until after the 4th of July. They can start on the 5th and clean up all the beer bottles and cans on their way. That's a win. But the preferred alternative is slow down design phase 1, which means no construction in 2025. We'll get good, clean design that the council will approve. We'll bid it this fall or this winter. We should get even more competitive bids in 2026, certainly.
Thank you. Because most of our events are still happening mainly during construction season, won't we just run into the same problem again in 2026?
Excellent question. I was going to get to that, Councilmember Mize. If I can, I'll get to it where it was part of the presentation. We would then ask the council, where we're pausing construction. We would then ask the council to authorize the work, I believe it's under task order 3, which is East Railroad, Bernhardt, and is it Washington? We would start the design on that sidewalk lighting project, as well as the covering of the ditch, which we have agreements from CHS to cover that risk area and beautify the area. Again, a good use of TIF district funds and resources. We would activate design for that. And when we go to bidding, it wouldn't just be phase 1, it would also include East Railroad. So we'd bid 2 projects. We'd hold all of our permits, all of the moving pieces would have been aligned, and we pull the trigger on construction, weather permitting, as early as March or April. And we start them off of Main and First, get all of that work done, let the 4th of July happen. They're working on East Railroad, then bring them back and do Main and First, and we avoid the confusion of all of the events that are scheduled. The worry being construction season in Montana, for a certainty, usually is about the 15th of May to the 15th of September. If we can't start until the 15th of May, we're going to have some issues. And I submit we would have to say, if we choose the LURA preferred options, if we're under construction next year, these events have to happen somewhere else. They're on notice to plan for something else in 2026, if that's the choice. The question for the council, and again, LURA unanimously recommended, let's choose this option. We'll do thorough design in 25. We'll do 2 projects of construction in 2026. That's not what we promised you, but that is their preferred alternative, and for all of the reasons pointed out. And it does give the event organizers a year's notice that, hey, if we have compressed construction, your events have to go somewhere else because we have to put these projects under construction and get them done. Tell me what you would like. If you want me to choose go to construction, which is what we've authorized at this point, and accept the risk of active construction with events, we'll do it. You can also tell the event organizers we're under construction. Sorry, find somewhere else. That's not going to be very popular, but it is an option, or the preferred alternative.
Forrest, what's your estimated cost increase waiting a year?
And the good news, Mr. Mayor, inflation's at least down over what we've seen over the last 4 years. The last figure I saw year to year was 2.8%, which is a whole bunch better than the 8 and 10 we were seeing a few years ago. I don't believe that increase based on inflation will be as significant as the cost associated with the risk of having active construction and events in the area, or the cost in terms of revenue to the local businesses and event organizers from having to relocate on very short notice. I would also assume I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
No,
I would also assume that where we bid in the more traditional time window, December, January, rather than March, April, we'll probably get more competitive bids as those contractors are looking at building backlog for their workers through the year. We'll probably see tighter bids than we will this year. We may come out of it stinking like a rose, to be brutally honest.
What's the estimated cost?
I don't have that yet. We'll get that with 50% design. And once I have that, I can come back to the next workshop and we can talk about estimated or engineer's opinion of probable cost.
So
for-
you didn't have any estimate in your head at all when you proposed all this?
It's certainly less than the TIF district budget for the fiscal year. And we cross over into next fiscal year under construction.
What is your good guess? Are
Good
you at a
guess
million
for-
or?
For what we're looking at downtown, grief, there's a lot of sidewalk, curb and the lights. I don't know what the final number on the lights.
But
We're
even if you go
probably
to,
looking at $1.5 million for construction.
and if you go 2% of 1 million.
Yeah.
That's a lot of extra money.
It's a lot of money, yes. So it'd be another $35,000. Yes,
Oh, well,
it's a lot of money. You're absolutely correct.
okay. Councilmember Banks?
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering about the TIF grants that we get for that. Are they going to be still usable next year, or how long do you have to use those monies?
Good question. It's not grant funding. The TIF district is funded by tax revenue. The city declared an area of the city of Laurel as, the word the statute uses is blighted and in need of upgrades and facelifts with respect to infrastructure in the hope of attracting in new development, redevelopment, and value-added process. We have seen that here in Laurel. The area off of South Fourth that goes to Walmart, all of that is in the TIF district. It was vacant land at the time the TIF district was created. And if you look at it now, there's Walmart, AutoZone, O'Reilly's, the Ford dealership, the hardware store, the mini mall, McDonald's, all of that development, when the district was created, making up a number, but let's say the value of that area was $100, it's probably worth $1 million today. And that increment between 100 and $1 million is that increment that funds the TIF district. The limiter in the law is those funds, that increment that we collect has to be used to improve the infrastructure within the district. We can't just pick it up and spend it anywhere, because it's not just the Laurel General Fund, the city's general fund that's been diverted. It's schools, the county, all of those dollars in that increment that are increased taxable valuation come to the city, deposited in that cash restricted account, and has to be spent on infrastructure within TIF. So the answer to your question is we have as long as we need to do appropriate design, bidding that is in the best interest of the city, and pay for the improvements.
One more question. Were you updated on today's House bill?
Unfortunately, yes. CAO Markey Guard told me that Senate Bill 2 had passed, which, as I understand it, Senate Bill 2 says you can take all of this TIF district money, you can pump it into that infrastructure and realize that increment increase. But when the TIF district ends, your taxable valuations are going to roll back, I believe it is to 1986, which means you're going to get a revenue cut. But in the grand scheme, the money that's coming in now is already being diverted. You'll still see a minor increase on your city general fund, as will the schools and other beneficiaries. But it's not the benefit you deserve because you've invested this money in infrastructure, growth, and development of your city.
So
I'll leave my political
you
belief
don't-
out of that.
you don't believe that waiting a year, this House bill is gonna affect it at all?
As I understand it, the bill takes effect when the TIF district sunsets at the end.
Okay.
That's my understanding. Like 20 years? Yeah.
Councilmember McKay?
Thank you. I think obviously we've all been kind of chomping at the bit to get stuff done. And I also know Laura has too, and you guys have just been rolling and moving so quickly and getting things done. And I think we all appreciate that. those members that make up Lura are also the people that are primarily responsible for these events. So knowing that they really took the time to look at this and think, kind of the risk versus benefit, and what's going to best benefit the community, but also make sure that we're safe, because I also am very risk adverse. I think we have to respect what they have to say too. And I don't mind slowing down a little bit to make sure that all of our stuff is being submitted properly and done right, rather than just trying to bulldoze something through. And perhaps that ensures that we're able to have those events still that Laurel is known for and done the right way and the safe way. So I think if the Lura committee, who is primarily responsible for Fall Festival, 4th of July, Farmers Market, all of those things, if they're saying that they think it's in the best interest to slow down and wait, I think we have to respect that too. I think we all want this done. We know that they want this done, but if there's a better way to do it, we also have to recognize that.
Well, and again, it's not their decision. It's not my decision. The council just needs to give me guidance. The promise I made you when you hired me to do the coordination, tell me what you want and I will make it happen as fast as I humanly can. If the right answer is complete design on 2 projects and the council, you'll have to tell me this. If that's the right answer, I can make that happen and we can get 2 projects in 2026. There are a lot of good contractors out there and we should have the budget to make both happen. The hitch would be, the council would have to be cognizant, and we will give you a budget for fiscal 26. So you'll know what we're looking at in terms of capital needed to complete that project. Because I know that some of the TIF district funds have been earmarked by the council for the work on West Railroad that you're working with MDT on. So we'll navigate that process as well. And I'll step aside for.
Councilmember Canopy.
Yeah, I like the fact that we're thinking East Railroad Street because people are gonna wanna see progress. They're gonna wanna know what we're doing, where we're going. And that's a huge dangerous zone for the people that walk and commute back and down East Railroad. So if we're showing we're doing something that benefits the people, that's the big thing, because we're making a decision on our community, just like they are. And I think it's important if we show progress or put a plan out. I think it's a great, just that we're not backing and kicking the can down the road.
No, we're not
like
kicking
that
the
at all.
can down the road. And the Lura committee has asked, especially if the answer is pump the brakes on construction, that I come down periodically and keep the council updated. This is where we're at. This is what we're doing. These are the permits we've secured. This is our anticipated schedule. That helps keep the community involved and aware that we didn't just stop for no good reason, but we're making progress. And then in 26, as soon as the weather is right for construction, we'll see action.
Councilmember Mize.
Thank you. Is there an argument for not splitting up the project to do the streets on the east side of town that are less in the parade route, less in Farmers Market, starting with like that section, Wyoming to Montana?
Unfortunately, we can't just drop project 1 and let it sit idle because we're so far down the road. We're at mid-late
Yeah.
March. I could tell the engineer we want to change the project, but we wouldn't see any construction in 2025 because by the time they complete that design, which is going to be massive, the ditch coverings itself is going to require a significant amount of design time, and then the design for the curb, the sidewalk, the lighting, trees if we want them along that area, getting all of those moving pieces together. Even if I told Brad at Triple Tree, drop this, start tomorrow on this, I wouldn't expect to see a design for 50% until August. We wouldn't be building anything.
Don't put another tree in unless you can water it. These
Got
trees,
it. We've
these
had
trees
that
buried in these
conversation
sidewalks
too.
are dying because there's no way to water them. the business owners have to water them, and if they forget or move out, those trees die or hump raise the sidewalk, so just. Okay.
So I'd also like to answer some of Councilmember Mize's question on that. When we go to bid on something, and I used to do concrete construction for a living back in the 90s, we would expect to have free rein on how to prepare that contract and how to move forward, except for the special circumstances, which we can add into the contract. So you can sit there and say, you must work around the 4th of July, you must work around the farmer's market, you must work around Rock the Block. Well, Rock the Block is in July. They've already booked 2 bands. They have 4 events. The Carlton Depot is sponsoring it in conjunction with the Laurel Community Foundation. So that's July. So not only the 4th of July, happening in July, Rock the Block, and they're booking the bands already. They already paid the deposit on them. Then we come in August and we had a permit for requesting out in front of City Hall for the farmer's market every Saturday. And 2 of those times, combination with Rock the Block, they wanted to have a bazaar, is that what I'd say, or a flea market kind of thing on a Friday night to bring more people down to Rock the Block and then have something else to do besides listen to the music. So that was the plan. I can just say right now, talking with Cheryl, then we get into September and they want to hold the farmer's market. And then in September, the weather is conducive to have the fall festival.
We also have an event in June.
What's in June?
We have the firefighters memorial.
Oh, yeah, the firefighters.
And the run.
And the run. So June, July, August, September. I'd like to say doing concrete construction, we go in October, but if you've lived here, you know that it snows in October and it might not leave until April or May. And so we run the risk of having to do concrete work in the winter, which is then winter work, the price goes up. If I was doing it, I go, hey, we're doing winter work. You can pour down to 10 degrees. It's not ideal. And then you have to cover, you uncover, you got to keep the frost out of the ground. And then the impact of the businesses in the winter. We have snow in the way, we have parking issues, and then you combine that with working in downtown. I just think it's a mess going through the winter construction. Saying that though, if we go over on Railroad Street, there also is an irrigation ditch that we can't not touch during April, May, all the way up until October. So any of that work will have to be done. And maybe we could do that this fall after the ditch is shut off October 15th. That is earthwork. So that might be where we could go in and do that when the ditches come off in October. That's usually just a concrete culverts that are installed. So the ditch can dry up. We can go into construction this fall and do that. If we can get just maybe break that one project out and say, hey, ditch covering, it has to happen in the winter off season because we can't impact the irrigator south of the city. So that has to be done in the winter. That's a no-brainer. I would like to say I'm probably partly responsible for bringing these in because I realized attending the meeting last Monday that, and Brittany brought it to my attention, hey, does anyone approve this? Does this need to be looked at? So actually it's Brittany's fault. So she's the person tonight. So anyway, we just started looking at all those events. And so the fall festival, she brings 6,000 people in downtown, and I believe it. I've attended them. I've seen you there. So you've attended that event. When you bring, and here's my caution to the city. You bring that many people into downtown and then you're trying to sit there and say, well, you can't go there, you can't do that, and you can't do this. And they're trying to pour curb and gutter over here and they're trying to do lighting over here. And you're inviting everybody in the community to come here. And let's come right in here in a construction zone. There is risk for that. When we did the East Downtown EDI project, we did that during 4th of July. We only had a few streets down there. It was at the far end of the parade route. So it wasn't really, it impacted a little bit, but we buttoned it up. But during that buttoning up, they did lay the string line for curb machine. During that event, the 4th of July, someone leaving a local establishment decided to jump the string. They fell and they got injured and they sued the contractor. I think they were going to sue us too, but they went after the contractor. Maybe the contractor has a little bit deeper pockets, but that did happen. I was approached by somebody that witnessed it, and then I relayed that over to the contractor that this person actually attempted to jump the string And so we had somebody actually that came forward because they knew me and said, hey, listen, I witnessed this. I was with that, that person that did that. And I don't think it's right what he's trying to do to you or do to the city. So we have people, good people in this community that want to protect us from these events and the construction. But I think it would be better maybe to take into consideration what the community is doing as volunteers. I don't think Rock the Block makes that much money. They sell, it's for the community. And my biggest, and I don't really, it's not a main concern on those things. I attend most of them anyway, but I'm worried about the business owners getting in and out of their property, that we're making sure that the design and the construction, we've talked to the property owners. We make sure that we do little to no impact to those business owners. I'm afraid, I don't know if King Avenue was going on and there was a business on the corner. I think it was an auto dealer lot. And they tried to sue the city of Billings and I think the state for doing King Avenue because they lost all the revenue and they went under. They closed up and I think it's a car wash now. So I always take that into consideration. Hey, when we're doing construction, let's really limit the impact of those business owners. So if we do, the contractors know, that's my concern. Keep those businesses open, keep their citizens or their customers coming in those doors. In the case of Rock the Block, I talked to the community foundation, I think he's president, and he goes, well, if you're on First Avenue, we'll just go over to Western Security and we'll give them directions to come in that way through the alley. So on those nights, 4 nights in the summer, there might be accommodations because we're not going any further east on East First Street. Those streets were done in 2006. So for Rock the Block, yeah, there might be a way. But for the Cracked Egg, and that might impact them. Yellowstone Bank, the haircutting facility across, if you walk over there, there's a raised sidewalk. That's going to be impacted in that area. And so if you really look at it, there's going to be huge impacts to those local business owners. And we want to make that as seamless as possible. We want to make sure the contractor is aware that they are in business. They have to pay their taxes. In order to do that, they have to get customers in those doors. So I think that's one of my main things that we want to see in the contract, that the business owners are impacted as limited as much, or as less impacted, so that they keep their businesses open.
Just
So
come on up and shove him all away.
I'm out of here, but
Thank you, Kurt.
It's my turn. Hi, Council and Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to kind of give you kind of an insight to the Laura committee, like our meetings, like kind of like what Jody said. We have gone over every single detail. And I think Cammie and I are more excited than anything to get this project going. When we saw what it was or should have been like 15 years ago and we saw the booklet, we're like, did this not happen? So we are completely, and I want you guys to know that, we are committed to making this happen. But what happened is by the time we got to this, and then Kurt was like, okay, we don't even have permits for the MDT. And as we know, that could be next week or that could be in September. So we're not even really sure when that's going to happen. And when we started kind of really looking at the timeline, we kind of were like, okay, this is, like Kurt said, it's going to impact a lot of the big events. And yes, I run the Fall Festival. I wish I could stand up here and say I make $1 million from it and I'm really sad, but it is a volunteer thing and it's huge for our community, as well as what Cammie does for the farmers market and for 4th of July. So when we started looking at the timeline of what you're dealing with construction, then it became a safety issue, which what we're trying to alleviate with the sidewalks and the tripping hazards and the lighting. We didn't want to go, okay, well, we have these big events, but now in construction, like he was explaining, now we have all these tripping hazards. So it kind of started to snowball into, oh my goodness. But then when we met on Monday during kind of an emergency meeting, like, okay, we got to really kind of figure out this timeline. We started to realize, yes, we have an amazing engineer with Triple Tree Forrest and Doug do a phenomenal job. I have no doubt that they will push this through. But my worry is will we get the same quality of product and a quality construction company and all that if we move too fast? That is my concern. Whereas like, for example, Forrest was saying the best time to go to bid is in December, because we're looking at contractors now that would bid it, that would probably be, kind of really good, but they've already filled up their year. They're done. They're like, we don't have time. So we wouldn't even get them on the playing field if we went out to bid after we get MDT. So when we started kind of realizing those aspects, that's where we were like, maybe we should, as much as we want to, trust me, I want beautiful downtown and I want to fix the path to Walmart. But then as we started kind of talking in the meeting, and I promise I'm going to wrap up, but it kind of, Forrest made a really good example. Like if we can focus the rest of this year on allowing, I felt bad because I think Triple Tree is spinning their wheels trying to get it as great as possible. But if we can give them more time to work on the design, then incorporate over on 4th Street, Walmart, the ditch and all that, and kind of consider it maybe one big package. And then we have the ability to talk to those contractors and kind of move into, the ability of working around these kind of events. And it gives myself and Cammie a whole year to go, okay, what would be plan B for Fall Festival? Or where would we change things, if we get to the point where construction, is still in doing that, during those times of. So I just want you guys to know from our heart, trust me, if we've thought it and we've talked about it, we have hashed it out. So I appreciate you guys' support. We are so excited to beautify and get this going for the city of Laurel. But I think also that would give us the opportunity to kind of maybe show the community, here's some plans, like here's some pictures of what it should look like and will look like. And it'll give us some time to kind of do what I would say some of that marketing to our community, which we might not have because we're going kind of fast. So I don't know. I hope that helps.
Councilmember Mize?
Thank you. This is a question for either CEO Markegard or Mr. Forrest Sanderson. I find it to be a real struggle when you go to a town and multiple streets are all closed down at the same time. So if we are putting the East Railroad Street on the same timeline now as also the First and Main, are we going to end up with real congestion issues and people having a hard time trying to get around town?
A good question. Again, until we have the design and construction schedule, especially on the
Thank you, Lance.
East Railroad, it's kind of hard to guesstimate. What I'm envisioning is when the central business district is busy, construction's happening on East Railroad, this is healed up, it's purdied up, and they're over there. They finish a phase, move back here. The big ticket's gonna be 4th of July. We're gonna either wanna have Main and First done early and then they come back and finish. But I don't want to take away flexibility from the contractors, so long as they're aware we've got this concern, and time your moves accordingly, we get a better price. But we will make them aware that there are certain times and certain issues. You can't close down the entire central business district for a month or 2 months. Likewise, you can't shut East Railroad and Bernhardt and Washington for months on end either. There are businesses over there. The hope is we can say to the contractor, plan a schedule, show it to us that crosses all of these T's and dots these I's, yet you're still being very productive when your crews are on the ground working. And we end up getting a very competitive bid for both projects.
Forrest, how is Triple Tree set for possible holding off for a year?
I
If they-
spoke with
If they get it
Brad.
designed, are they going to say, well, we're done?
No, they're not going to, that's not going to happen.
Will there
When-
be a additional expense?
I can't imagine there'd be an additional expense on project one. Their project budget was very elevated because it was hit it, get it, don't spare the ponies and get it done. If they're able to scale that back and take on responsible design for project two, slowing down, I believe we could see some savings on phase one because they're not going crazy, burning the midnight oil and overtime.
Okay.
And they can then focus on design as well. They'll stay busy. They'll stay happy. I have talked to Brad about this possibility, and he was excited about getting to break ground on that as well, as well as having more time to make sure that what they deliver to us and what we ultimately bid is really what we want to see downtown. I don't think he will be disappointed at all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Last comment, and then I will ask to go home. The 4th of July this year is on a Friday, and next year it's on a Saturday. So I would hate to say that being it's on a Friday, we're gonna have a lot of people coming to town. Doesn't seem to matter what 4th of July it is. We have a lot of people coming to town. So I'd imagine on a Friday, 3-day weekend, it's gonna be busy. Next year, also on a Saturday, for state employees and civil employees, we get the holiday on the Friday. So another 3-day weekend. So a lot of people will get that also off is on that Friday. So we're dealing with 2 weekends, 4th of July this year and next year. I just wanted to bring that up. So you can do your own conclusions on how many people will get to Laurel. So.
Okay. Well, we all know Michelle Brockman, our attorney, and her thoughts on this. She's probably standing up in her hospital bed screaming, no risk, no risk. So calm down, Michelle, calm down. Get better. So, Councilmember Mines.
Thank you. So just out of curiosity, do we need to put it on as an actual agenda item to vote on a new plan, or do we just come to an agreement and doesn't need to be a resolution?
Good question. We might get some insight here.
My preference would be a formal action from the council. Right now, your action that authorizes work is put the hammer down on project one. Until I have different guidance, that is what I'm going to do. So on Tuesday, I would appreciate a council decision that would change that direction, if that is your pleasure.
Brittany?
So are you asking for a resolution or just for them to make a motion next week?
I think a motion, but it should be on the agenda. I thought all council decisions came in the form of resolution.
We can have Kurt or Michelle if she's better. Put it in.
And I can help Kurt
resolution.
if Michelle isn't better. We can get
Yeah,
a resolution.
We'll put
that
it
would
in
implement
resolution
that.
form for next week, depending on what you want. Was it the council's preference for the hold off?
I don't want to speak for everyone, but I mean, I guess we could all nod or shake. But I think it would make sense to hold off. I guess if others don't feel that way, they could vote no on the resolution.
Does any council member not want to hold off? Okay, Kurt, you got what you want? They're gonna hold off a year. And we'll turn that over to Michelle if she's better.
I'm gonna get down to the nuts and bolts. We also have to be able to afford these projects. So we have available funds available. Currently, I think the balance is over $5 million in that account. We're talking $1.5 million here. We don't know what the other one's gonna be, but if we get a 50% on next week, we'll know the cost estimate. That gives us a lot more information to sit there and make really good decisions. So I'm always in favor of going, hey, what's this gonna cost? In the past, Southeast 4th Street, down in the south side, that was one of the biggest things that I was told for many years. We gotta get some work done on the south side. All the work's happening uptown. I heard from council members, from mayors, we gotta do something for the south side. That project came in way over what we had for budget. We lucked out. We got federal funds $2.5 million, I think, and it went through the state, and then the state appropriated that to us. And it was like, man, we would have had to turn that bid down because we didn't have it. In this case, we actually have cash on hand. Monday, we'll know a little bit more about what is going to be expected. As we get through design on task 3, is it 3, 2?
I believe it's task 3, task
Three.
order 3.
We get through that, we'll have a little bit understanding on that. Then we can sit there and say, okay, what can we afford? We get a cost estimate on that, and then sit there and say, well, we have available funds. If you don't have the cash on hand and you go to bid, you have to go onto a bond. The bond cannot exceed 2045. So we have to have set aside revenue from here till 2045. If we need to make a loan, because we don't have the cash in the bank, we'll have to get a loan. Hopefully we don't do that, because we still, if we want to talk about East or West Railroad Street, we still want cash on hand to help do that. But if we get to the point where we run out of funds, we have to go to a bond. That bond has to be, can exceed 2045. And then we are limited on how much you can spend in subsequent years because we have to meet that bond payment. So it all has to align. The stars, they have to align. The projects have to align. Our available cash has to align before we can award bids to people. And in the case down there, in 20 years, I got lucky. We got lucky because we had federal funds come in that went through the state. So with that, I think as we get more information coming into the council, you get better informed, make better decisions. So holding it off just even a couple of weeks would make a world of difference of knowing what the costs are going to be for this one, for project 1.
Councilmember McKay.
Thank you. I just wanted to share really quick. Last night at Public Works, we talked about the West Railroad project, and that may get pushed to 2028 due to county and state and all of that kind of stuff. So when we're talking about that money and all of that, that's still a little ways down the road to even be in the conversation.
Well, and if it would be okay, Mr. Mayor, where Lura meets on Monday and we're going to get the 50% design, and we should have a preliminary engineer's estimate of probable cost, I'll come to council and we'll lay that out. So you're making the informed decision based on the most current information. The only other thing I have to tell you is unfortunately April 1st, which is your next available work session, I have to be in Baker, unfortunately, so I couldn't make the following work session. I've already promised to go over. It's their April statutory planning board meeting and they want me in Baker, so there I have to be. Help them comply with the law.
You want to get out of that? Just call them up and say April Fools.
I don't think they'd appreciate that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Anything else? Any other items? Nothing with the Legion, cemetery? Parks are okay? Okay. Attendance at, oh, sorry, Council Vice President.
Probably the rest of us have forgotten, but next Monday night we'll have an emergency services meeting.
Okay, okay. Still working on that net.
Thank you.
So we've talked about that, right? Putting the net up for the baseball. Now that, I think I seen Laurel High School practicing over there. So we can't wait too long on that, so. Right, okay. Attendance at the upcoming, what? Kurt, you're gonna wear your welcome
I know.
short.
So I just wanted to inform the council, the mayor and I were invited to the Coca-Cola bottling facility on Monday, yesterday afternoon. And they awarded Laurel Little League $10,000. So Laurel Little League got the date wrong. So me and the mayor had to bring back a rather large Coca-Cola check and a really small Coca-Cola check. And so those funds were turned over to the Laurel Little League. I'm not a Coke drinker, but.
We gave them the big check.
So
Good
anyway,
luck.
I just wanted to, they didn't have to do that for anyone in our community, and they did. And so I drink Dr. Pepper once in a while. But I got to see that facility, and you think about it and how those businesses impact our community, and they do impact our community. And in this case, they gave away $100,000 to local charitable organization. Billings Trail Net got some, the Education Foundation in Billings got some, but Laurel, a nonprofit in Laurel that serves the youth of Laurel, got a $10,000 check. And I really think that's something that should be announced to the council, that the mayor and I attended that. So sorry to do that, but.
No, that's fine. I forgot about that.
Okay,
So
thank you. I'll go.
probably because we didn't get any, but, okay. No announcements? I already did attendance and everybody shook their head. All right, we are dismissed.
Thank you all.